Hello my friends and family. I just wanted to apologize in advance for the really long video. This is my short version of Mary Jane's story and history and some of the things that we've gone through to get us from the beginning of her diagnosis and journey to where we are at right now. And I know some of you have wanted some updates and know how she's doing after her hospitalization. And I do get into that in here as well. For those of you who aren't going to be able to sit through this long of a video, I want to jump right in at the beginning and ask for a favor. I would like to reach out to any other autism parents or just parents with children who may have been on Remeron. This is the new medication that Mary is started tonight to replace her trazodone. The trazodone that she's been on has been steadily making her more and more hyper emotional and violent. And so this mama bear doesn't mess around. She's now off of that medication and we're trying something else. But I would really love to hear from other parents what they experienced with their kids if they've tried this medication. And I am completely aware that every child is going to react differently. Every person is going to react differently to a medication. But I really would love to hear other people's stories on this. So, you can leave me a message down in the comments. I don't know, I think you can even send messages straight through YouTube nowadays. Or you can also check out the Chaos Mamas Flying Circus Facebook page. Those are probably the best ways to get a hold of me if you're not family and already have my information. But yes, I'm really interested, and I'm looking forward to having conversations and sharing this information with others as well. So, I hope you enjoy my Mary Jane story, and I'll see you guys later. Have a good night. Hey there, I just thought that I would do a little bit of an update on Mary Jane after her hospital stay. Just to give a little bit of her background, drug history. In her first school, while they were yelling at me for not being able to get her to do in 2 hours what they couldn't get her to do in 8, she was having flat out, textbook autistic meltdowns, rocking in the middle of the floor with her hands over her ears, screaming, "It's too loud, it's too loud." And here I had been telling the social worker already that I was very suspicious that I was seeing some of the autistic traits that my son had been displaying when he was younger, except for my son didn't get diagnosed as on the spectrum until 9th grade. So up until then, he was just being treated for ADHD and anxiety issues. So that's a really long time to be dealing with the wrong diagnosis. And I really wanted to make sure that Mary didn't have to do that. I wanted to be on it this time, now that I know better. Because, as a parent, you see one kid that is struggling forever and you go, oh my gosh, if only I would have known, I would have done so many things differently. Well, here goes round 2. So with Mary Jane, I was very proactive, or at least I tried to be. I tried to be very proactive with, talking to the teachers, talking to the social workers. But I feel like I got ignored because when they're really little, they say, oh, well, that could just be, the normal behaviors that they could just grow out of. So we're just going to wait and see. I didn't want to wait and see. I already played that game. It didn't work out with my first 2 kids. Now my first 2 kids are still struggling in school, and we've still not figured out how to help them be successful. So I really wanted to be proactive and get right on it with Mary Jane, and they completely ignored me until here she's having a full-out autistic meltdown in the middle of class, and then they come screaming at me all of a sudden that, oh, you need to do something, and I'm like, I've been telling you for 2 years. But anyways, I'm getting a little off track. When she was in first grade, I think it was, is when we first had her on her first medication, is the Ritalin, because she was having, originally there were 2 main symptoms that seemed the most troubling, and that was severe anxiety issues and severe attention issues. My other kids had been on pretty much the same regimen of Prozac and Ritalin, but you know, the doctor always wants you to start with one thing first and then get that stable before you start adding anything else. So with my other 2 kids, we started with the Prozac first to help with try to get their anxiety under control before we tried to deal with the attention deficit. And I just kind of felt like I was always fighting to balance the 2. It's very tricky when you have those 2 conditions that you're trying to medicate, because they set each other off. If you give the kid a stimulant to help with the ADHD, that can also increase the anxiety. So anyways, we tried her on the Ritalin first this time, because we tried it the other way with the other 2 kids, and it was ridiculous. It was the first time I'd ever seen her go completely bonkers, running around the room, literally like circling the sectional couches, jumping onto the coffee table and throwing my piles of laundry up into the air. Like, she was just crazy. So the Ritalin didn't even make it a week before I was like, no, bad idea. We'll try it your way. So we took her off the Ritalin and decided to address the anxiety first and put her on the Prozac. So after that, I did the homeschool with her for a year. I pulled her out of school completely because I had an all-out, down and dirty fight with the social worker over Mary's behavior and my other kids too. So I pulled her and we did homeschool, like online. She was on the Prozac the whole time that the whole year that she was doing online school with me. But I could tell that there were other learning issues at play that I was not qualified to diagnose, qualified to treat. And most of that revolved around writing. When she was in school, she was in first grade, and she was a year behind in her reading skill levels. So she was like still at a low kindergarten level when she was in first grade. I pulled her halfway through the year. So the second semester of first grade is when she started homeschooling. And within that one semester, she went from being a year behind in reading skills to being a year ahead in reading skills. It was the environment. It wasn't that she couldn't learn or couldn't do it. It was the environment itself. It's too much for her. She can't handle that kind of stimulation of all of those people and all the noises and the bright lights. So her reading was great. It was wonderful. I was watching her grow and take huge strides, even though it was taking us all day long to do half of the day's curriculum. She was learning, which is more than they could say before, because before it was all behavior. They were just trying to manage her behavior and keep her from disrupting the classroom. So she never actually got to learn anything, like really much from school. But even with her having my almost undivided attention, where we focused strictly on her academics, I could not figure out for the life of me how to help her overcome her aversion to writing. Even trying to just get her to write spelling words, like doing a spelling test, would be a big ordeal. I ended up having to, for her to even test her for these things after trying for days on end to do one spelling test, I ended up having to do everything verbally. And because we were doing online school, I ended up being able to alter a lot of her homework assignments and stuff like that to be able to help her learn the material. But as for the textbooks, she sat there and read those textbooks for fun. She would sit there and read her reading books all day long just because she enjoyed it. And so the whole time she was with me, I didn't really feel like I needed to change any of her medications because I still felt like she was just having, very overwhelmed with her environment and had a hard time coping with that. It was too overstimulating. So in theory, to me, the Prozac seemed to be okay, except for the writing problems that I could not overcome. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to put her back into the school district to utilize their resources so that they can do the testing and they can figure out what this, if she's dyslexic or dysgraphic, which I think it was dysgraphia, because she can read. It's not an input problem, it's an output problem, which is dysgraphia. She still to this day writes numbers backwards and switches things around. So even though it has gotten better, it's still there. So when I put her back into school, I met with the principal before we went back in, told him all about everything that had happened and what I'd been witnessing and the struggles that I'd seen and what my concerns were about her being able to participate in a classroom. And he was absolutely wonderful. First day that she went back to school, I was able to go in and to drop something off, probably like her medication or something. And the principal just happened to walk through to tell the secretary, okay, yeah, I just checked on Mary Jane. She's in gym class right now. She's got the noise reducing headphones, which they provided for her on her very first day. I love it. I am so impressed with this school. But yeah, so he was already checking on her and making the principal himself. It was awesome. However, it didn't take very long for her to start getting overwhelmed and overstimulated and starting to get stressed out and starting to disrupt the classroom, starting to tip chairs and throw books and tear up her work or run out of, she'd run and hide somewhere in the school and they'd have to hunt her down. It ended up where she would bite the principal and throw garbage cans in his face and stuff like that. So obviously it was very, very distressing. She was still having a lot of outbursts in school, running out of the classroom, turning the classroom upside down, yelling and screaming, assaulting the principal, just a lot of non-regulation and struggling with coping skills. She couldn't handle any kind of stress or noise or whatever. But this is when she was in a classroom of 30 kids. They had cut her back down. They had cut her from full days to 4-hour days at school, hoping that that would allow her to be able to handle it. At one point, she had a parapro that they offered me. I did not have to ask for these things. The school was so great that when we would have our IEP meetings, they were offering, okay, well, this is something that might benefit her. What, if we get a parapro that will sit with her through the day to help keep her on task, to help, be able to see when she's starting to get overwhelmed and help to defuse the situations before they turn into a blowout fight. And so, yeah, for mood stabilizer, he switched Mary over to from the Prozac to the Risperdal, or he might have had her on both. It's hard to say now, it's been a while. But after being on that for some time, even the Risperdal, she ended up gaining 30 pounds in 6 months. So that's like 5 pounds a month for a little girl, and it wasn't just a growth spurt. She was getting even more aggressive. I mean, I think a lot of the things I just described were after she was, you know, switched over to the Prozac. I mean, from the Prozac to the Risperdal as she got more aggressive. But then after she gained all that weight, I told the doctor I don't think that this medication is it's not working for her very well. She's gaining all this weight. You know, I'm not satisfied with this medication. I think we should try something else. So at that point we did the gene testing. You can get the mouth swab, and they do a DNA gene testing where they can, it gives you an idea of the liver enzymes and what medications their body can metabolize and use efficiently. So I end up you get like 3 different categories of medications for different symptoms or whatever. And they go into 3 different categories, whether it's stuff that is likely to have a bad interaction with her DNA, some that are hit or miss, and then some that are most likely to be effective with her genetic makeup. So after we did that, I think from the Risperdal we went to the Invega. So switching from the Risperdal to the Invega, if it doesn't help stabilize her weight, or if her weight doesn't start going down, then there's another medication that he can add on to that. So more time went by. She's still struggling in school. The school decides that it would probably be better suited for Mary Jane to go to the Macomb Intermediate Schools, which is kind of like a special ed thing. Oh, and somewhere in there also we went from having private insurance to state insurance. And when I got into the state insurance for the kids, it opened up a world of services that we did not have access to when we had private insurance. Best thing that has ever happened for my kids was getting on that state insurance, because that has covered so many things that I would never have been able to get for them. She started getting occupational therapy, outpatient at a certain place that has like all sorts of equipment in the building. She was on the 2 meds. She had the Risperdal, and then we ended up adding in more recently, it was after she switched to the intermediate schools, we added in the Trazodone, which is supposed to help with the weight problem. She was gaining so much weight so fast. We switched her off to, from one med to the other. That didn't work. So now we're adding in something else. However, when we added in the Trazodone, I saw that it helped dramatically with her self-regulation. Now see, we're not trying to medicate her to make her normal. We're trying to give her tools so that will help her be able to handle the environment that she's in. Because when, in her world, she's being assaulted by everything around her. The lights are too bright, the sounds are too loud, the clothes, it's like being hyper sensitive to everything, and it's like everything is so loud and noisy, not just audibly, but every sense is like jacked up. And so it makes it almost impossible for her to be able to hear past and see past all that noise, to be able to pay any attention to the academics, because it's just so stressful. Her brain goes zing, and there's just so much information that her brain is trying to process and understand. And then, all of these emotions come from that. It's like, when you're cranky and you're overwhelmed and you're tired, you have a shorter fuse. Well, that's her. She just couldn't handle anything. She had no coping skills for any minor outside stress, because it just pushed her over the edge, because she's already feeling so assaulted by everything around her. So the medication isn't supposed to be a pill to make her behave or a pill to make her normal. When we are medicating her, our goal is to help her, get her emotions down enough so that we can actually focus on working on the coping skills. Because when it's like when you're drowning and you're treading water, that's not the time, it's not the time to start learning intricate swimming techniques. You're just struggling to breathe and keep your nose out to get air. And so the medication is supposed to be a tool to help regulate her enough that she will actually be able to work on learning the skills that she needs to be able to become more functional and more successful on her own. Because at the moment, her emotional sensitivity is a big roadblock for not just for her education, for her entire quality of life. Because we can't go do things like normal people can with their kids. I can't go to a birthday party. Well, I can, but we have to know ahead of time when they're about to sing the birthday song, so that I can make sure that I can warn Mary Jane, and I can say, do you want to get your headphones on, or do we want to go out into another room because they're about to sing the birthday song? If I don't do that, and they start singing the birthday song, she will start screaming and hitting herself in the head, or banging her head on the table, or knocking things. She just loses it. Same thing. We took all of the kids to a concert once, and it was like the whole time was trying to just kind of help Mary be able to stay regulated so that the other kids could enjoy things. She misses out on a lot because everything is just so overwhelming to her. And so that is one of our goals with the medication, is to help her find a way to be regulated enough that she can enjoy life, that she can sing with the rest of us, or go to a concert with the rest of us, or go to the movies, or even go to the park. There's everything that most people take for granted, that I've even took for granted with my other kids, because even though my other kids had issues, they weren't as severe, as obvious. They weren't as much. And so, I can't even have my car stereo up. I used to take that for granted for sure. Oh, good song is on. Turn up the radio and jam. I couldn't do that when B was little, and I couldn't do it when Mary was little. Now that they're getting a little bit older, they will have certain songs. If it's a song that they like, then they'll say, hey, turn it up. God forbid it's not a song that they are into, then I'm in trouble, because they can't hear anything else that's going on in the car, or, this is just too loud, I can't stand it. The world is assaulting them. And so, to try to come back to my point about the medications, when we went to the hospital, they added in a medication to try to help her sleep, because I was concerned. She doesn't sleep well. She's waking up a lot all night. We tried melatonin. It wasn't really cutting it. So that's when we added in not the tobamax. The tobamax was added in after the Invega. What's this one? Here's the Invega. There's the tobamax. Trazodone. So we've actually got 2 different doses of the trazodone, one for in the morning and one for at night. Saw her psychiatrist today, telling her about, I didn't even get to talk about my team meeting today. So it's only been maybe 2 weeks since Mary's been out of the hospital. I told my case manager that I really wanted to meet with Mary Jane's psychologist, because since she works with her at the school, I don't get that same kind of communication that I would when I take either of the other 2 kids in for their therapy, because I get to sit and talk to them face to face, even if it's just for a few minutes. But since I don't get to do that with Mary's, I I told her I really wanted to have a meeting. So she scheduled this big meeting for us today. She knew I was going to see the psychiatrist today, and so she knew I was going to be picking Mary Jane up from school. So she made arrangements, my wraparound services coordinator, for me to have a meeting with what I thought was just going to be the therapist. But when I come in, there's Mary's teacher, there's her psychologist, there's my wraparound services coordinator, there's my parent support partner, and I want to say there was at least one other staff member there. All had come to talk about what they've been seeing since Mary's been back from the hospital. I know John my husband's been saying that he's been noticing like every day it's getting worse, that she is getting more and more emotionally reactive in the manner of not violent outbursts, maybe a little bit. I saw her hitting herself on Monday for the first time in months. It's been months since I've seen her have that kind of self-interest behavior, and it was only over because she'd just gotten out of the shower and she was trying to put her clothes on, and her skin was still kind of wet and she couldn't get the clothes on very easily, and so she was freaking out because she couldn't get her pants on, over her legs, and she ends up by getting so frustrated that she's punching herself double-fisted into both heads. I haven't seen that in a long time, and it's making me very scared because when she switched from the standard school where she was in a classroom with 30 students over to the Michigan Intermediate, or not Michigan Intermediate, but Macomb Intermediate, now she's in a classroom with 8 students. And it was just like the weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders, because when she was at the other school, even though she was cut down to 4 hours a day, I was being called in 3 or 4 days out of 5 because she couldn't make it through 4-hour day. That they had her pretty much locked in the sensory room, or they had to evacuate the classroom, or she, knocked over the sand table in the sensory room and was throwing the rice all over the place. Off the hook crazy. It was a nightmare. It was an outright nightmare. Like, the worst nightmare moment for me was when they had to evacuate the classroom and they had to call me in. I think it was one of the first times that she got suspended, and as soon as I get to the school, I have certain staff members waiting at the door to escort me. That's not normal. That's not the way it usually goes, but they were there waiting. Like, it was code red. And so I just expect, they told me, she's having another meltdown, she's throwing stuff, which she's done before. That wasn't new. Hold on a second. Oh, okay, she's just playing. I thought she was getting upset. She's out there right now with her CLS worker doing working the rest of the Christmas tree and doing some math skills. But yes, so I had to come into the school, and as they're walking me up to the classroom, they're telling me, they keep giving me these looks like, it's really bad, Tanya. Like, this, I've never seen her this bad. Like, it's kind of scary to, trying to prepare me for the scene. Like, there's books everywhere. There's not a single book left on the shelves. And, every single chair has been flipped upside down, and I'm like, wow, that sounds crazy. But as we are walking up to the door, I'm like 10 feet away from the classroom door, which is closed, and I can hear Mary screaming at the staff that you're stupid and I hate you, and I can hear bang, bang, bang as she's knocking things and throwing things, and my heart just stopped. And so I go into the classroom and my jaw just hits the ground because it literally looks like a tornado. It was horrible. I couldn't believe it, and I was just speechless. I didn't know what the heck to say. Like, what do you say? What do you say to staff who have claw marks on them and I just started crying. It's crazy. I was like, what do you do? It's like, this is my kid. This is my kid that did this. And it's hard not to sit there and think, like, what am I doing wrong? How did it get so bad? You know, why can't I figure this out? Why can't I help my kid? Why is it my kid that's out of control? But the thing is it's not us as parents. It's the child's brain. It's wired differently, and she can't handle the surroundings. And there's nothing that I could do to change the wiring in her brain. All I can do is try to be supportive and help her with coping skills. And so that brings me back again, because I keep going off on tangents. So I went into the doctor today telling him I don't want her on this medication anymore, basically, that I want to try something different. And I had to get firm with him, because just telling him, oh, well, we're watching her escalate again. I'm watching her start to have these same behaviors that she was having before. I'm really concerned about it. I don't like it. I'm not comfortable with it. And it's only been since she's been on this new medication, and it's getting worse every day. He's like, his first thought was, he said something about increasing the dosage. No. So I had to do the mommyzilla and very gently say, no, we want to try a different medication. So this is where you guys come in. I dropped the prescription off. This is not a medication that I'm familiar with. It's called Remron. I think that's the brand name. Oh, I don't even think I could try to pronounce the generic. This is Mirtazapine. Okay, I guess that's not as bad. Wait, no, there's a T in there. Mirtazapine. Mirtazapine is the generic. So I don't know what the dosage of this is, because I forgot to look at the thing. He did tell me in person while we were there, but I don't remember, and then I forgot to look before I turned in the prescription. I'm really nervous. We're going to keep her on the Invega and the Trazodone. Oh no, I'm sorry. I misspoke. The Invega we're keeping, and the Topamax we're keeping. But we're getting rid of the Trazodone, which was the one that we added in to try to help her sleep, but it's making her crazy. So now we're the Remron, and I'm looking at the side effects, and I was like, you can't win for losing, because every medication has side effects, and this is the cycle that I got stuck in with B. Because we would get a medication to try to help him control his anxiety, but then it'll bring out all these other crazy symptoms, like certain ones would have hallucinations, or it's insane. And then you end up you can't tell the difference between which symptoms are from the medications and which symptoms are actually part of the anxiety or autism or whatever. And so you start medicating symptoms from the medication, medicating side effects of the medications, and then it just starts this whole cycle. So I'm really, really nervous. I really wanted to hear from other autism parents. I know that every child has a different biology and body chemistry and will react differently to different medications. But I really, really would love to hear anybody else's experiences with this medication, good or bad. Give me an idea what to expect or to look for, because her psychiatrist, I feel like he didn't really, he was telling me about allergy symptoms to look for, and I'm like, that's not really what I meant. And so then he gives me this printout, and I'm looking at the printout now that I'm home, and it has the weight gain, increased appetite, possible, irritability, suicidal thoughts. Like, medicating her with something that could have side effects that are exactly the same as the symptoms that we're trying to prevent. I just want my kid to be able to function and be happy and successful. So, pretty please share with me so I can share with others. I'm sure I'm going to do plenty of research on it as well, but we will see. For those who are just family and friends that are just trying to keep up with everything that's going on, that's where we're at. We're trying a new medication, and hopefully this will stop the self-injurious behaviors from escalating, and hopefully get her back on track, because she was actually doing pretty well in school in the beginning of the year, and now all of her academics are starting to go back down because she's too hyper emotional, and she's starting to assault kids and destroy things. She broke her glasses twice yesterday. She, destroyed a whiteboard at school. She's starting to throw things at students, and these are not behaviors that were common. I mean, there's been phases where they were, but no, lately she's never even assaulted other. There was one time she assaulted a kid, sort of, because the kid was, grabbing her stuff over and over after she told him not to, and so she pushed the kid down and she got suspended for it. I totally don't think that that's fair, but I couldn't. And that is actually when the school decided to put her into a different school, is when she finally, the one time that she actually got physical with another student, because they already knew that she had the tendency of being aggressive, but it was always towards staff and adults. It was never towards children. But now, the one time that somebody messed with her enough that she lost it, they ended up shipping her off to a different school. But that's okay, because I do feel like this school is a better place for her. So, anyways, I've rambled on enough. Thank you for listening, and have a good day.
Always look on the bright side of life. Come on! Always look on the bright side of life. For life is quite absurd, and death's a final word. You must always face the curtain with a bow. Forget about your sin, give the audience a grin.